as I am wont to do from time to time, when I have something apart that looks like it could use a coat of paint, I'll do that. I had to take the transmission cooling lines off because there's a little bit of rust down there, and that won't do. And since I've got it off, I'm gonna go ahead and put a little coat on the transmission case as well. I'll just go over some of the parts. These are mounting fixtures. This is the transmission level, oil level dipstick tube. This is one of the return lines for the transmission oil cooler, and as is this one. This right here is just a little plastic breather cover. I'm not going to take it off. I'm just going to tape it up because things this old, in my experience, try to take them off, sometimes that plastic will snap. I don't want to have to deal with that. Mechanical speedometer cable goes there. This is the kick down for the transmission. This hooks to the throttle, and that's your kick down linkage when you floor it and it needs to downshift. And that is where the gear selector connects. That's the unit right there. I'm kind of curious about the wiring. Let's see if we can figure that out. But yeah, I'm gonna give this a quick coat of paint, and then I'm gonna knock the rust off of those steel cooling lines, repaint those as well. Okay, transmission paint is complete. Didn't paint the inside the bell housing. It's not exposed, so it doesn't suffer much corrosion. Aluminum does corrode, as you probably know, just nowhere near as quickly as ferrous metals such as steel or iron. What I was really concerned about, of course, was the transmission lines. The chromium plating had come off and they were starting to rust. But I got VHT 500 degree black paint on that. I hit it with a wire brush, of course, and I use acetone for degreaser. It seems to work pretty well. The oil transmission cooling lines are going to get new crush washers. And while I'm at it, this is the paint type that I used for the transmission case, Krylon. And this is for the transmission lines. That's what I put on there. This is the sensor that connects to the transmission gear selector. I mentioned it earlier, and I said I was going to open it up and see what it was all about. However, it's riveted closed, so I'm not going to be opening this. Most of the case is aluminum, which doesn't rust very quickly, but part of the backing, the bracket, is steel, and it is starting to rust. So there's no neat way to paint this, but I hate rust. So it's going to get a coat of paint even if it looks sloppy. While I'm at it, this kickdown lever, I've reassembled this. These little retention rings also were a little rusty, so I put some Rust-Oleum on those. If I were having trouble with the transmission not kicking down when it's supposed to, I would start looking here for adjustments. I don't want to make any adjustments for demonstration purposes because mine runs great as is, and I'm afraid if I tinker with it, I'm going to have to go back and reset it. However, it seems to me that this does move. These two metal rings hold in some tabs with teeth on either side, and they grip the shaft that comes up out of the transmission. And with those rings off, these two plastic tabs will just come right out. And it seems like they're designed to be able to adjust up and down relative to the shaft that they attach to. This is the subframe of the Daihatsu Midget II with the automatic transmission. I really like this thing. It's very simple. I brought this out at the same time I brought the engine and transmission out. I have cleaned it with some heavy degreaser and then sprayed it with some brake cleaner. There's really not much rust here, but I see a good opportunity to POR 15, just coat the whole thing while it's out of the vehicle. I'm going to do that. And it's basically a hollow tube that runs around to the other side. After I do the outside and it cures, I'm going to pour the remaining POR 15 into the tube and slosh it around, kind of seal it on the inside. And I think that'll eliminate any worries about the subframe ever rusting. So that's next for me. Within the next few days, I'm going to do some work on the intake port, the plenum, and the head rather. This is the here's your part number for the intake plenum gasket for the Daihatsu. If you notice that there's some carbon buildup on the intake plenum, this is where this plenum does not match up exactly with the head from the factory. I've got the engine upside down, or I'd show you. It's not unusual. However, generally you can get a little bit of performance improvement if you'll machine these overlaps away so that it matches up. And the perfect template to do so, well, there we go, is it's a new gasket. You can see how much additional metal there is vis-a-vis the gasket. So I'll be taking a rasp and trying to match those up soon. As a part of the work on the intake of this vehicle, maintenance, I'm going to be replacing every single rubber hose, start to finish. And this is to help me keep track of where things are. I'm about to take the fuel pump off next. So the fuel pump has 3 lines. Bottom goes to here by this screw adjustment. Top goes to the bottom pipe. And then that connects to the vehicle. And the third outlet goes to this hard line. So I'm going to take that off. Oh, and then there is a 4th fitting. I believe this is a vacuum line. It connects to a T. This T was connected to the valve cover breather line, and then it connects right in there. So let's take that fuel pump off. The next item to disconnect is the EGR valve. The EGR valve appears to have only one portal, and it goes to a T, and from that T it connects to a check valve, and then becomes the middle line on this thermal coupler. Just FYI, the other T ends up right here. So the EGR is off now. I'm going to be removing this coolant line, yes, coolant line off the plenum flange, and it goes right here. That's the line that I'm pretty sure is about to burst based on that bulge. I'm going to take this 3-way, this 4-plug thermal coupler off next. There's a check valve that tied into the EGR. On the column of 3, the one closest to the engine goes up to this pipe. The one at the very top of the row goes to that pipe. And then the vacuum source, I assume it is, the one the connection that's off to its own on the side goes to a check valve and then feeds through and connects here. All right, what shall I do next? Okay, next I'm going to remove the line that connects to, that's probably cylinder 1, don't quote me, but connects to the plenum. Then there's a check valve, feeds to a T. And this feeds out to here, no idea, but I'll figure it out looking at others. And at that T, then it goes back to third pipe from the top. So I'm going to disconnect that next. I also want to note that this is a plug cover on the back of this. This, I believe, connects to something that's still on the vehicle. And that is a plug cover. There is a connection on the underside of the carburetor close to where it meets the plenum, and that feeds up to this pipe, which is the top pipe. That's coming off next. Now I'm going to take it off here. This is the second from the top pipe, and it connects, gosh, right there. I think I'm going to disconnect this one with the check valve. That is connects also third from the top, third pipe from the top. It goes to a T, check valve. I'm going to pull that off. That's how it feeds out. This one also is grouped together with the one I just illustrated. I'm going to disconnect that as well. Now I'm disconnecting this one. That also goes to the third pipe from the top. It goes down to a fairly large black, white, and orange check valve. And the orange is facing towards the air cleaner, not the engine. And then that one traces to this device, that connection. Now, this one, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the fourth pipe from the top. It loops over and connects right there. On to the next. This is next, and that is connected to the third pipe from the top. It goes to a green, black, and white check valve and connects here. Now this one, that is the second pipe from the top, and that hose goes underneath, comes out here, and connects right there. This is the top pipe, connects to a black, white, and green one-way check valve, or I guess that's one way. And then it traces to this green and gray device, which is right there. Now I'm going to double back. There is a line connected here next to this adjuster screw. It traces underneath that green and white and black check valve, and then becomes a T. One end of that T goes to this emissions canister, and the other end of that T traces back to a long line, and if memory serves me correctly, this connects to the second evaporation canister for emissions that I left on the chassis. It's kind of outside of the engine compartment. under the cargo hold area. Now I'm going to start tinkering here at this vacuum diaphragm. I assume that's the choke, maybe. This line connects to the third pipe from the top. It wraps around this diaphragm and connects to a fitting right here. Now this traces to the terracotta and black Denso device and connects right here. Then there's another one off this diaphragm. You can see right there. This goes under okay, so from here goes under, and if memory serves me correctly, there are a couple of valves or solenoids that I left on the chassis on the driver's side in the engine compartment, and that EGR center screen, that maybe not EGR, but that goes to here. I'm close to having the air horn and the associated doodads back there disconnected. One of the evaporative canisters is a large hose with a protective sheath. Connects right here. And now the air horn and Duma flitchies are all disconnected, and I think all the other hoses are disconnected, at least on one end, except for this coolant I guess this is coolant, right? Probably coolant arrangement, and this is how it's set up. I'm going to take that off too. I also want to make some notes for myself on where the electronic components connect. I think that's it. And there's really only one wiring loom that connects to the carburetor. A choke, I guess, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think I can take off the hardline pipes next. Hardlines are removed, and I put the bolt and the nut that retains them back into their places for safekeeping. Dirty as hell, but no surprise there. The carburetor is held to the intake plenum with only 2 bolts. This one, which I've already taken out, looks fairly normal, but this one is an Allen head barrel on top of a nut, it appears. And I assume they did that because it would be very difficult to install if not. So almost looks like a shell casing, but it's a hex head with a nut and a pressed on washer. Now the carburetor should separate from the intake plenum. So there's the carburetor removed from the plenum. There's a rubber O-ring on the plenum that seals the carburetor. The single butterfly on this little engine is unbelievably small. Unbelievably small. What do we got there? It's 1.12 inches. I have to do some calculations for the metric, but gosh, that is so friggin' small, you know? That's crazy. Even more startling than the size of the butterfly is just how small the orifice is the airflow is going to go through. You can see the venturi, and there's a donut around the venturi with a jet that is considerably smaller than the butterfly valve. It is amazing. So tiny. Here's one more look at just how tiny that is. Crazy. Unbelievably small.